Welcome to the Gwinnett Digital Business Breakfast. My name's Jeff Henderson, and on behalf of Gwinnett Church, we're so honored and thrilled that you're here. If you're watching one of our business breakfasts for the first time, I want to tell you a little bit about why we are doing this. We thoroughly believe in our business community. In fact, we believe one of the ways communities thrive is having thriving businesses. And especially in this season, as difficult as it is, one of the things we decided to do as a church is to provide some helpful, free content with outstanding business leaders to help you and your team and your businesses. And today will be no exception. In fact, you probably have heard of John Maxwell. I first heard of John 23 years ago. 23 years ago, someone handed me a tape. Remember those? And it was a talk on leadership from John Maxwell. And when I listened to this tape, it was like a light bulb went off. And I have been a huge fan and admirer of John ever since. I've been very fortunate and blessed to become a friend of John's over the years, and his impact on me has been incredibly significant. A couple of years ago, I read one of his books that he released called Relational Shift, 11 leader shifts that we're gonna have to make in our leadership if we're gonna keep up. And as great as that book was then, I actually think because of all the changes that have been happening, it's actually even more relevant to today. So I reached out to John recently and said, hey, could we talk about leadership? We're going to talk about 3 particular leaderships today. And my hope is that this will encourage you to get the book for the other remaining leaderships. In addition to John's talk, our team has compiled the notes that we would love to send to you. And all you have to do to get the notes is just text GC Breakfast to 313131. And one of the things we're loving about these digital business breakfasts is seeing how you're leveraging them. Many of you are asking your team to watch these and so that you can discuss them and dialogue about them. And that is a huge win for us to know that the work that we're doing is providing value and helpful content for you and your team. Now, if you're watching this live, we want to remind you that you can chat along with us and our team will be responding to you as well. And so take advantage of the live opportunity. If you're watching this on demand, thanks again for being here. And again, this might be an opportunity for you to rally your team at a later time in the day to watch this session. But I'm so thrilled that you get to hear from John. And again, this book that I read a couple of years ago, outstanding book, but I think even more relevant in today's world. So without further ado, here's John Maxwell. Well, what an honor it is to have John Maxwell with us today. John, you've impacted me both from afar and from up close. And so just thank you for spending some time. I know you got a lot of things going on. What you may not know, for those of you that are watching this, John recently lost his father, so he's in the middle of the celebration services and the memorial services. So John, thanks for taking time to be with us today. Such an honor to have you with us.
Well, you're a wonderful friend and a terrific leader, Jeff. So thanks for having me. I always look forward to being with you. We just don't get enough time together. Aren't there some people in your life you just say, why am I not getting more time with that person? Hey, and there are a few people in your life saying, why am I having so much time with that person too? So it goes both ways. But you're on the why am I not having more time with you? And so to be with you and to be with some of your business friends in this setting, I'm delighted to be here. Let's see if we can hit the ball and help them a little bit, huh?
Well, and that's why, John, as you know, for those of you watching, maybe this is your first Gwinnett County Digital Business Breakfast. One of the reasons we're doing this is we want to provide value for the business community. Sometimes the church world and the business world don't talk that often. And so we wanted as a church to provide helpful content. And goodness, in terms of adding value, there's nobody better than John Maxwell. Specifically, John, I read this book when it first came out, Leadership, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about today, because you wrote this book before a global pandemic. You wrote this book before 2020, but I actually think this book is better positioned now than ever before. So it talks about, we're going to talk a little bit about this. My hope for all of us watching is that this is a preview for you to read the book like I have. It's the 11 essential changes every leader must embrace. So one of the things I love asking authors and content creators and experts like you, John, is why did you write this book and what prompted you to give it to the world?
Well, Jeff, when I go speak for companies and organizations, I always do a pre-call. And, to find out where they are, how can I serve them? What's the theme of the conference, et cetera. And about 3 years ago, I was doing a 30-minute pre-call, and the company that I was going to go speak for shared with me that their theme when it came was fast forward. And in fact, they said, well, what do you think of our theme, Fast Forward? I said, well, I like it. And they said, well, what does it mean to you? I said, well, let me just take each word. I said, fast to me, when I look at the future, means faster. I can't anticipate the future not being faster. Of course, I said this 3 years ago. And it just, so fast is faster. And I said, when I look at the word forward, to me, it's shorter. Forward is shorter. I'm 73, Jeff. When I started off leading, literally, you're too young for this. When I started off leading, you could have a 10-year long-range plan for your company. Yeah, in fact, you had a 10-year long-range plan for your company. You had a 5-year, which was mid-range, and a short range was 2 years. That was a short-range plan. Well, you say that today in this culture, and they look at 2 years and they say, that's a little long. That's a little bit, Right. So the forward is shorter and fast is faster. And when I finished with that conversation with the company, I hung up the phone. I said, I need to write a book on how to be an agile leader, how to be flexible, how to adjust. And so I went through my own life and I looked at the adjustments I had to make, the leader shifts I needed to make in my life. And I could designate at least 11 that I made. And I don't think that's all, but I mean, that was 11. And I thought this is going to help people because leaders so many times mistakenly think they got to just stay at the course. And I think there are times when the course has moved on you. You're off course. And so I wrote the book, and it's just been it really did well. But what is funny, when you mentioned where we are right now, the book has done very, very well. In fact, made bestsellers, but now it's going crazy. And I look at this book and I said, well, I didn't anticipate this. I wasn't smart enough for this, but it just kind of the time in the book just matched. And a book, I think, when people ask me what are my books that impacted me, they weren't the best books written, but the books that impacted me they were books that I read right when I was at that same crisis where the book was speaking to my need. And I think that the reason leadership is doing so good right now is we're finding in our culture where we are right now with COVID-19 and all the stuff that's happening. You better be agile. Hey, you better be quick, and Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, move.
And that's one of the pivotal lines in the book is today's best will not meet tomorrow's challenges.
True.
And you wrote that again before any of this happened. So, but while that can be a challenging reality for us, tell us why that's also encouraging and what we can do that today's best won't meet tomorrow's challenges.
Well, that comes out of a conversation with Mark Cole. As you know, he's a good friend of yours, and he's been with me for 20 years. He runs everything for me, and he's a gift. He's just a terrific gift to me. I love Mark. I can't speak enough positive things about him. But we were on one of our trips, and he said to me, he said, John, I watch you do something, and nobody celebrates like you. You just say, oh, we touchdown, let's celebrate. And they said the very next day, you're off of that. You're not even thinking about that. You're on to something else. And if anything, you've got a healthy discontent of it's kind of like, is this the same guy that yesterday was celebrating? He's now focused and ready to go on to the next mountain. He said, talk. How do you move and adjust like that? How can you one day celebrate, say touchdown, the next day say, where's the ball? Where's the ball? So I distinguish the difference between best and better. And what I said, and what I try to teach in the book is this, because I think it's very important. Best is for now. In other words, every time I'm doing something, I'm giving it 100%. I'm focused in, and I'm all in. I'm all in. Best is for now. And I owe that. I owe that to you. I owe that to the people who are with you. I owe that to my readers of my book. I owe best. It's 100% I'm all in. But tomorrow, I already assume that whatever my best was yesterday isn't enough for tomorrow because I have to keep growing. The only guarantee that tomorrow is going to get better than today is that I'm growing today. And so what I do, Jeff, is the next day I say, okay, well, that was good. Now let's build off of it. The difference is I treat best yesterday as a floor, not as a ceiling.
So good.
Some people just keep best as a ceiling as well, or they'll say, I hear them say, well, I'll never get better than this. And I go, oh. If you're growing it, it's got to get better than this because it ain't going to be enough for tomorrow. And so I take best of yesterday and I say, okay, now what makes it better? Because I think greatness isn't going from 0 to 100. I think greatness is step going and understanding that whatever is best has to improve, has to be better. So I kind of leadership improve my way to the top. If that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. And this is something among many things I've seen you do, but when someone has the success that you have had, they have a temptation to build shrines to the past and to defend the past. And when something like 2020 happens, you try to hold on to dear life for the shrines of the past, but you've never done that. It's amazing to me, John, how you have been able to go, no, that's in the past. We're moving toward the future. That's why you just continue to innovate and create. But I think it comes down to this whole idea about today's best can't meet tomorrow's challenges. And am I getting better?
Well, I think, first of all, my father, of course, just passed away. In fact, he passed away on July 4th. And it just fits his personality because he was a barn burner. I mean, he was a charge hell with a water pistol guy. I mean, if anybody should die when they're doing fireworks, it ought to be my father. I mean, it was just, in fact, I spent the day before with him and I knew he was close to death. And I was doing my early morning swim and I was praying and I was saying on July 4th, God, take him today. Mm-hmm. He deserves a July 4th departure send-off in that whole process. And so what we're talking about now, it comes back from my father, but what he taught me was just amazing. And that is that, in fact, I put a sign in my office that I held for many years in my office and just says, yesterday ended last night.
Wow.
And I love that sign. And by the way, if you just messed up and had a big failure, let me tell you the good news. It ended last night. But if you just had your biggest day and you scored your greatest victory, let me tell you something. It ended last night. And basically, good. So what? And I have always, in fact, I say to people, if you look back at what you did 5 years ago and you still are kind of amazed and thrilled by it, all that means is you're not growing very much today.
So good.
In fact, let's take that book Leadership. For example, the worst thing about writing a book is the moment I hand the manuscript into the publisher, I want to change it. I think, oh my, why didn't I think of that? This is much better. And so with I've been doing books for a long time. And so my publishers understand when I send you the manuscript, I sent you the manuscript, but I will mess with it some more. In fact, I've just wrote a book called Change Your World that'll come out next January. And I rewrote it 6 times, and they just sent it back for final approval. And I said, I'm going to change the last chapter. And I did. I changed the last chapter. And here's why. Why am I? It's like when I wrote 21 Laws of Leadership at the 10th anniversary, my publisher said, John, go revise it for us. I said, okay, I'll revise it. I hadn't read it for a long time. I picked it up and I started reading. I said, well, this isn't very good. Oh my gosh, did I write that? Now, let me define deep discouragement. Deep despair and discouragement is when you're reading a book that you wrote and you say, it's not very good. And then big amazement comes, Jeff, when the fact that it sold 3.5 million copies and you sit there and think, do I have to give everybody's money back to 3.5 million people and say, I'm so sorry? And so in my contract, it said I was supposed to revise it 15%. And I ended up revising it 87%. 87%. And people said, John, were you that bad? Let me explain something. When I wrote the book and I were on the same page. But in the next 10 years, what am I doing? I'm growing. I'm just now the book's still down here. So when I go back to it, all of a sudden there's a huge gap. And I'm just saying, if there's not, there needs to be a growth gap in every person's life, which makes them look at yesterday and say, I value what I learned yesterday, but I'm a lot better today.
And that whole perspective is such a gift in this season because we're all off balance. We all been knocked off balance, trying to find some stability. But what you're offering us is, no, this is a huge opportunity for learning. And the fact that you're looking at a book, which I actually think was massively well written and was a huge impact in my life. But the fact that you would look at it and kind of rewrite it says a lot about what the kind of leadership that we're talking about here. So I think that's remarkable.
Yeah. I didn't talk about downshifting in the book, and I should have. Yeah, literally. I mean, I thought I didn't tell people that sometimes you have to downshift. You have to literally slow down, and to be able to speed up. And so the point is just very simple. That I love yesterday and I value it, but my father. Okay, here we go. When he was 96, we were having conversation. We were having lunch. And he leans in and he said, John, look at me. I leaned in and he said, I've been thinking. He said, I truly believe my greatest days are still ahead of me.
Wow.
He's 96. He's 96. I still believe my greatest days are still ahead of me. My friend Simon Sinek wrote a great book called, about No Finish Line. What is it? What's the name of that book? Such a great book. And his whole principle is that there's not a finish line.
Yep.
And I really believe that. I believe too many times we say, well, I'm going to retire at this age, or I'm going to do this. And if you have a self-imposed finish line, when you cross it, guess what? You're finished. And I think, wow, I don't want to live that way. I want to have my best days ahead. I want to keep learning. And I think a teachable, growing spirit. I mean, I listen to your podcast, Jeff, and I listen to them when I take my walks. And the problem is I walk and I have to stop because I have to put a thought you just gave me, and I put it in my quote section. And so I never walk fast, but I tell people I don't walk fast, but I walk very smart. By the time I'm done the walk, I didn't break any world record, but I got in my iPhone, I got some major thoughts that I picked up from people like you. I think the spirit of learning and being teachable and understanding there's more out there is a way to live, a great way to live.
And I've seen that. And the first time you and I had dinner, we're sitting there and you tricked me because before I knew it, you were asking me questions and I'm talking to you like I actually know something. Then halfway through, I stopped and said, hey, you tricked me. Why are you asking me questions? So, but you have this teachable learning spirit, which is obviously a gift from your dad. But having said all that, I want to talk about a couple of the leaderships. There are 11 in the book, so I want to just give a little bit of a preview. The first one I want to talk about is the impact shift. And you talk about shifting from trained leaders to transformational leaders. This is a big shift because I think as leaders, we can think, no, what we got to do is we got to train people, which is what we need to do, obviously, too. But you took it to another level and said, no, in this leadership, we need to talk about trained leaders to transformational leaders. So tell us the difference in your perspective between a trained leader and a transformational leader.
It's a great question. And I made that shift. As you know, I have an organization, Equip, a nonprofit organization, and we literally train 5 million leaders in every country in the world. I think we're the largest training organization in the world. And when we finished with that, I sat down with my board and we were just high-fiving because it's a pretty good accomplishment. And I could tell that they thought we were done. And I remember I said, no, we're really not done yet. And they're looking at me and said, done? What do we have left? And I said, we need to now take those trained leaders and help them to be transformational. And that was an interesting all-day board meeting as we discussed it. In fact, they said, what do you mean by transformational leader? And I said, well, you're going to, I just intuitively know that there's another level and you're just going to have to give me a little time. And here's what I know. When you see a transformational leader, you know it. Your life has changed. And the difference is a trained leader really knows how to lead well. And so they improve the life of people, which is a wonderful thing. A transformational leader changes the life of people. There's a change that happens within a person. I mean, transformational leaders, they see things others do not see. They do things others do not do. They feel things others do not feel. They believe things others do not believe. And so they achieve things others do not achieve. And so there's a level of that is about transformation. And what we believe about that, now that we're doing transformational leadership, and I'm going to take up more time than I should for you, but here's what I know. We started going into countries by the invitations of presidents of the countries to do transformation. And what we know is this: it begins with values. It begins with values. Right now, with the crisis we have with the racial divisions, I hear a lot of people say, "Well, we have a law crisis. We need to have better laws." And by the way, I'm not opposed to better laws. We don't have a law problem. We have a values problem. The law, if a person lacks values, I don't care what the law is, they'll figure a way around it. That's why. Go back to Enron in the early '90s, and Time Warner. I was writing for them at the time, and they asked me to write a book on business ethics, and I said I can't do it. They said, "Why?" I said, "Because there's no such thing as business ethics." And they leaned in and said, "What do you mean?" And they started doing it. And I said, "Excuse me, it's just ethics, friend. It's just ethics. You don't compartmentalize ethics. I don't go and say, you know what, with you, Jeff, I'm going to really treat you right, and I'll be ethical and value, and because I could do that because I'm over here just absolutely treating the next person wrong. You can't compare ethics. If you have it, guess what? It works in business. Oh, happy day,
right?
And so when they asked me about it, they said, "Well, would you write a book on it?" I said, "Well, it's going to be a little tough because we live in a culture with no absolutes. This isn't going to be easy." But I said, "Let me think about it." And I wrote the book, but I wrote the book based on the golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated. Now, this was life-changing for me. All of us, because the golden rule, that's taught in every religion, every culture. We did research on it, but here's where it's life-changing. All of a sudden, when I began to teach this, I realized that we had a values issue, and people needed to, again, learn and live good values. And what we've discovered is when you learn good values and you live them, then what happens is you become more valuable. You become more valuable to yourself, to your neighbor, and you begin to do what I call society lift, which brings transformation. So we teach transformation through small groups, which we call transformational tables, with 29 different values that if you learn them and live them, it just naturally helps to transform the culture. So I'm sorry. I could talk forever on this subject.
I think what we're seeing, John, right now is we're seeing organizational values rise before us. And we're seeing if they had good values and lived them out, then they're a stronger organization. If they didn't have good values, or they did have values, but they weren't living them out, it's being exposed right now. So I think it's...
No question. And what I love about this crisis, Jeff, is we're finding out right now if what we teach about values is true.
Right.
I mean, this is a great leadership time. Excuse me, I know we're in a crisis, but I'm telling leaders all the time, you're finding out on your team who the pretenders are from the players. I mean, you're getting the pretender. The stuff starts coming out, and you say, "Ooh, that's not good stuff coming out of that person." And so it's. I have a few companies, and yes, we're losing money, and yes, it's been difficult. But I looked at Mark. I said, "Mark, because he's saying, mentor me on leading the company." I said, "It's very simple. People first. People first. It's people first. If we go bankrupt, it's still people first. It's not complicated." Roy Disney, Walt's brother, said, "When you know what your values are, decision making is very easy."
That's so good. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Well, you talk about, obviously that's the impact shift. Let's talk relational shift, because you wrote about that in pages 82 and 83. I love this. You asked a question early on in your leadership journey, and I so resonated with this. Like you, I'm a preacher's kid, and in preacher's world, you have to try to make everybody happy, right?
Oh my! I know where you're going.
They're going to be happy, right? So you were asking this question: is everyone happy? And so here's the relational shift from pleasing people to challenging people. So you wrote in the book that you learned that over time, that's the wrong question. Could you share the story with us about how you learned that is everyone happy the wrong question? And what you learned about the pitfalls of trying to please everyone.
Well, yeah, this was one of my major hurdles and shifts because I was a young leader. First of all, I grew up in a very wonderful home. And we had issues in home, but we sat around the table, discussed the issues, developed a plan of action. Everybody bought in, and off we went. So when I became a pastor, because I was in what I would call a very healthy, happy home life, then I got in my first church, and I thought, oh my gosh, we got problems here. I was really naive. And I found that there were just a lot of unhappy people, and some of their unhappiness was directed to me. And I thought, well, everybody's always kind of loved me and cared for me, and I got to make these people love me and care for me. And so I literally started, instead of leading people, I said I define leadership as making everybody happy. Now I look back, you look at that, how stupid can you be? But that's what because, and by the way, in my denomination, my church, they were so congregational that the congregation voted on you as the pastor. Get the picture. So every year they'd vote whether you stayed or you left. So the esteemed pastors in my denomination weren't pastors that grew a church and changed lives. They're the ones who had unanimous votes. And I remember my first vote in Hillham, Indiana was 31 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstained. And I called my dad. I said, Dad, should I stay at the church? He said, why? I said, well, they voted tonight. Well, he said, how bad was the vote? I said, 31 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstained. I said, should I stay? Oh, he started laughing. He said, oh my gosh, yes, that's a good vote, stay. He said, in fact, knowing you, that's the best vote you're ever going to get in your life. So, hey, and Jeff, literally, honestly, I'm almost embarrassed, but for the next 6 months, every time I look down at my little country congregation, I'm asking myself, who was the no?
It was the one.
And then who was the abstainer? Because if you don't have enough energy to say yes, you really weren't like my biggest fan, that's for sure. And so what happened is I found myself trying to please people, which means you're just never going to do the right thing. You're going to do the happy thing. And it took me a process, but I learned one day that, hey, my goal was to lead. I was to help people, not make them happy. I was a leader, not a clown. But I want to tell you something. That was 3 years. It took me to get over that, making everybody happy hump to where I could start making good leadership decisions based on what's right for the people, not what makes them always happy. It was a big shift for me.
It's so important. All right, one of my favorite pages, maybe my favorite page of the book, is on page 85. You talk about always separate what's best for you, and what's best for the organization. And you provide 3 fantastic questions. So let me read these questions, but I want you to talk about the order in which these questions should come. What's best for the organization, what's best for other people within the organization, and what's best for me. 3 fantastic questions, but what really helped me in the book and talking about a leadership is that you talk about the order of this question in question number 1. So can you talk a little bit about these questions and why they're so important?
Yeah, well, I think the leader is the steward of the organization. And so the last question, what's best for me, is leaders always go last. As Simon says, they eat last. They because it's never about me if I'm a leader. By the way, in our dysfunctional culture today, we don't see that, do we? Yeah. We see an incredible amount of ridiculousness going around right now. In fact, I'm leadership sad for where we are. I'm just leadership sad. But so if I'm a steward of the organization, I need to ask myself not what pleases me, but am I keeping the organization on the track that it needs to be for me to steward it well and to to be the right thing. And then I always go to the people. I go to the people, but I learned a long time ago in my leadership that some of the very best people in the organization don't always want what's best for the organization. And they either get selfish or they lose the big picture. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. And so I go then, what's best for the people? But I separate the organization from the people, saying that I didn't come to always please the people, but I did come to fulfill the mission of the organization. So it's organization, and then the people, and then of course it's me. And so when people ever become leaders, I always say, let me help you with your perspective immediately. From this day forward, it's not about you. And I don't know what part of you don't know about it's not about you, but it's not about you. Yeah. And so everything you do, it's not about you. And when I tell people, say, well, John, what's the key to communication? I said, I can tell you the key. It's not about you. When you go communicate, it's all about the people. It's them. You focus on them. It's not about you. And it's not like, did they like me? Did I do well? I hope they want me to come back. I hope they buy my book. It's not about you. When I write my book, it's the question I ask every page is, will the reader turn the page?
It's a great
question.
That's a great question.
Because I'm not there with them when they read that book. I'm not standing there by the chair and saying, oh, the next page is real. It's all about them. And in leadership, you give up your rights. That's why. Well, I'll tell you what. Our friend Patrick Lencioni, I was talking to him the other day, and he just wrote a book. I think it's called Motives. But in it, he asked about why you become a leader. And he said that there are two reasons people become leaders. One is to take on a responsibility to help people. And the other one is for the reward for themselves. And the train wrecks are always, I lead because I'm wanting something out of it.
Yeah.
In fact, honestly, Jeff, I tell people all the time, if you're really a leader, are there really two great consecutive days in a leader's life? I don't think so, because so when people want to say they want to be a leader, I say, oh, excuse me. Do you know what this means? And what it really means is you're last. You're last. And sometimes in my little selfish nature, I just have to slap myself and say, John, it's not about you. It's about the people.
We always need reminding of that. And in fact, you still talking about the relational shift. You had this quote that I really love as well. You said, I must say that during this relational leadership, from pleasing people to challenging people, I felt great loneliness as a leader. Oh my goodness, John. Every leader on this, watching this, can say, I can resonate with that in the past and now. How have you dealt with loneliness as a leader over the years?
Well, I love the question. And everyone, like you said, every leader knows exactly where we are. We've been down this path. And how I deal with loneliness is that I realize loneliness is the right feeling for a leader to have.
Wow.
This is huge. In other words, if I don't feel lonely as a leader, the odds are high that I'm not leading for the best for the people.
Wow, that is so good.
So I've learned to be comfortable with loneliness, not thinking I'm lonely, therefore I did something right. I really think I'm lonely, I probably did something right. Versus I did something wrong if I'm lonely. And so I find that I've learned to be, now here's the other thing I tell leaders all the time. Now I'm speaking from faith, so I'm not trying to put this on everybody else, but because I am a person of faith, you never have had a great day in your life until you feel lonely as a leader and then realize you're not alone because God's with you. That is a grand slam. So am I lonely? Yes. Am I alone? No. He never leaves me. He never forsakes me. There's something beautiful about having time alone with God because you're lonely over your leadership, if that makes sense.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's powerful. So final leadership I want to talk about is the production shift, ladder climbing to ladder building. You've got the 4 stages of ladder climbers. Ladder climbing, how far can I go? Ladder holding, how high will others go? A little help. Ladder extending, and then ladder building. Can you talk a little bit about why this is important for us as leaders to go from ladder climbing to ladder building?
I love that chapter in the book. It's really my life, because I start off like everybody started off. We want to do well. And so I climbed the ladder, and I climbed as far as I could, as fast as I could. And by the way, I tell everybody, you better be a ladder climber. Because the only credibility that I have as a leader, Jeff, the only credibility you have as a leader is that you're good. If you haven't succeeded and produced as a leader, why the heck should anybody follow you? So to me, when you say to somebody, follow me, there is as an assumption that I'm good. And then if you follow me, it's going to be better for you too. So there's nothing wrong with ladder climbing. But as I did my ladder climbing, I realized that there was another level beyond my own personal success, and that was helping other people succeed. And that's where I define the difference between success and significance. Success is pretty much about me climbing my ladder, but significance is all about adding value to other people. So I decided while I'm climbing, I ought to be holding some ladders too. So who can I hold? So, hey, there's Jeff Henderson. Oh my gosh, this kid's a new kid. I think he's got something. I'll hold his ladder. Well, when you hold someone's ladder, they climb higher. Why? You give stability. Okay. So you get up a couple extra notches, but here's what's beautiful about ladder holding. In the ladder holding experience, you learn who you should ladder extend with. Because when I'm holding the ladder and helping people, there's some people, they'll still only climb halfway up. You don't need to do any extension there. They're not even taking advantage of the ladder you're holding. But it's in the ladder holding that I learn capacity and potential of other people. So I'm holding Jeff's ladder, and you're getting up to the top rung every time, and and I can say, you just need more ladder. So now all of a sudden I say, Jeff, come on down here. I've been holding your ladder, and you're really doing well, but you need a longer ladder. We need to extend you. You got much more potential. Now I'll still hold your ladder, but let's go get an extension ladder. And all of a sudden we got you. And now you're climbing up even higher. But you don't know who to give the ladder extension to until you've held the ladder for people. Hold the ladder, and the people will determine if they go to phase 3.
Wow. Then
you extend it. And so now I'm holding Jeff Henderson. Look at him. He's curved. I've extended that sucker. You're still climbing at the top. There comes a day where I say, Jeff, come on down. Let's go build you a ladder. Let's go build your business. It's not about anymore you helping me in my organization, being on my team or in my company. You need to get your own thing going. And this is where I empower, bless you, send you, and you go and you do something for yourself and for others that you would have never done with me. I always say, if you have great people, you should lose them.
Wow.
Because if they're really great, their greatness should be bigger than what you can provide for them.
John, that's such a big insight, because I hear a lot nowadays about leaders wanting their team to be loyal to them. Loyalty, especially in church world, it's just, we can preach about loyalty and submit to authority, and that's biblical. I get that. But what you just said is such counterintuitive and such a better approach, that if you're a great leader, you should lose people. Because it's a different way. And anytime I see, especially in church world, people start throwing around this loyalty word, it's kind of what you're talking about.
They use the word loyalty to try to hold people that their leadership doesn't have capacity to hold.
Wow.
That's why they like loyalty.
So true.
Yeah. Can I tell you something?
Sure.
If I'm a great leader, I don't need to ever worry about loyalty from anybody.
That's so true.
Because I'm a great leader. It's like moral authority. You don't need to have a position. If you've got moral authority, you have moral authority, and people will give their life up for you because of who you are. So when people say, well, you got to be loyal to me. First of all, again, I've never assumed that I'm the ultimate answer for anybody's life. I've just kind of assumed that I may be a part of their journey.
Right.
But I'm not the ultimate, and I've also always assumed that I should be replaceable, not irreplaceable. I mean, irreplaceable? I hardly think so. I'm not sure anybody's that big. I don't mean, my father was a great man. He's now in heaven, but I don't think heaven's looking down now and saying, what are we going to do? Melvin Maxwell's gone. Is there hope? I think we ought to. I've always told my staff, work yourself out of a job. In fact, when I hire people, I hire them to lead. So yes, they have to be able to do a function, but I want them to lead. And if you can lead, you should be finding somebody that can do your part. And so I tell people, work yourself. You talk about leadership. If you'll work yourself out of your job, I'll give you another one. I've had people on my staff that had, Mark Cole has had at least 7 different jobs in the companies. And I say, you work, if you can go find somebody to do your job, I'll go give you another because you're a leader. You know how to replace yourself. And then I tell people, but if you can't work yourself out of a job, the odds are high I'll take it away from you because you're not reproducing. All of us should be reproducing ourselves, which makes us replaceable. I love the idea of the people that I mentor, equip, and train, not only replacing me, but going beyond me. My father was a great leader, but he gave me a leg up on his legacy. And honestly, I'm going to go beyond him, not because I'm better than him. I'm going to go beyond him because he laid a foundation for me to go beyond him, of which I plan on doing that for people like you. I expect every one of you to go beyond me. I'll be ticked if you're not. I mean, that's the way leaders lead, and that's how leaders think.
Well, that's why this chapter in particular, just this chapter alone, is worth this book, price of this book. And so, in fact, for you leaders, you might even want to just start with the production shift and talk about that. Well, John, I could keep going, but I want to close with this question because I've heard you talk about change your world, transform your world, just constantly. I feel like, in my humble opinion, your next book that's coming up might be your life's work in terms of, as I see what you have done, see what God has done through you, changing, transforming the world. Can you give us a preview of that book if you can, and then just kind of let us know if you know the details of the publishing date. But I know that this is hard, but it's because here's why I think this is so important for so many different reasons. We're in a difficult season, but we're in a season that's ripe with potential for change. That's
no doubt.
So leadership, we got to get leadership. But talk about change your world real quick.
Well, I hate what we're going through, but it is setting up the book because people have lost hope. And first of all, we're looking for the wrong places to change our world. I don't mean this unkindly. Do we not know that government's not going to do it? Do we not know that education's had plenty of opportunities and still they seem to be missing the ball? Do we not know that no matter what laws you pass, people know how to bypass the law? Our statement when we go into countries is not transform your country, it's transform yourself. And I can still remember having just a tremendous conversation. In Las Vegas. How the Mighty Fall. Who wrote that book? The research guy.
Jim Collins?
Yeah, Jim Collins. Jim and I are having lunch. We're going to speak at a conference together. And so I'm talking to him because nobody does research and knows transformation like Jim Collins. He's phenomenal. So I depend on him a lot to help me. And so I'm talking to him about wanting to transform countries. And I'll never forget Jim leaning into me at that lunch and saying, John, remember this. It is impossible to change a country until you've changed the leader. And he said, change begins on the inside with an individual. It doesn't, and so one of the things I picked up on that, and I said, okay, if we're going to change our world, the first person I change isn't you. The first person I change is me. And I change me by beginning to learn and live out great values. And then I began to be able to, you cannot give what you do not have. And so the contagiousness of a leader is the fact that I have something that I can give you. When I teach mentoring, one of the things I teach is who you learn from is as important as what you learn.
Oh, that's
because what you learn is incredible to help a person learn, great principles, et cetera. But who you learn from, that's the contagiousness of mentoring. It's the spirit of the person. My father has mentored thousands of people. In fact, when we do a service on Thursday morning, the last part of my message is I'm going to just go back when he was 88, when he was 10 years ago, and where I called him up on stage and I said, talk to me about how you're changing your world right now. And he talked about how he was at a mobile home park and he decided to teach values in that mobile home park. And I mean, and then he went from 1 to 50 mobile home parks in the southern or central Florida area. And it's an incredible story. But the reason I'm going to close it with him is because he said he seated beside me, and then he has to get up and he has to talk, and then he has to move into the crowd. And he's so contagious. In 5 minutes, every person that watches him is going to be literally filled with that spirit of his. You can't help yourself. I don't care whether you like him or not. You can't help. He's a magnet because his life has been changed. And the moment your life is changed, you're catalytic to change other lives. And so it starts here. It starts here. Don't try to give what you don't have yourself. And I love what we're seeing. And so the Change Your World book is a process of how you change your world and then how it begins to spill over on others. And we, it's top down. Leadership has to say yes. It's inside out. It's based on values. And we just kind of walk a person through. This book is the book. I've written a few books. I don't know how many, 80 some for sure, which is no big deal. Think about it, Jeff. If you've written that many books, you have to be old. So, I mean, when you think about it, it's not that big of a deal. But let me tell you something. Change Your World is the book. It's, I sit there and think, did I have to write 88 books to get here? And I think the answer is yes, because I'm a little slow, but I'm very excited. I'm very excited. People are going to pick this book up, and all of a sudden they're going to see that they can make a difference in their world. They don't have to wait on someone else and they can make a difference, not only in the world, but they can do it right now. We give them here's what you do right now today to start making a difference. And so anyway.
Well, I'm very excited about that. And you've been talking.
Thank you. I am too. Thank you.
Well, John, I was going to text you earlier this week in light of your father's passing and say, hey, we can postpone this. And you beat me to it and said, hey, I'm so excited about doing this. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for taking time to do this in the midst of a very busy personal week. And thank you for 73 years of incredible value. We can't wait to see what God does in the next years ahead.
The best is yet to come. I've just got a little bit of my father in me. I just think it's coming along. It's going to be better. And thanks for having me, and keep up your great work. You're my friend and terrific. You're a phenomenal leader. And your book, fabulous book, by the way. I read your book 2 times because I read. If it's a bad book, I speed read. I've taken 3 speed reading courses. So here's my process. If it's a bad book, within 30 minutes of me picking it up, I've set it aside, never to pick up again. I've got it. Okay. If it's a good book, I read it. If it's a great book, I read it twice.
Wow.
I read your book twice. I'll tell you why. The first time I read it, I mark the book. The second time I read it, I go to my markings, and the book marks me.
That's so great.
The second time I read a book is not for information. I've already marked it, already got it. Now I'm reading those markings one more time, and it's all application. What does that mean for me? How do I apply that to my life? And I pull out of that book every applicational move that I need to make, which changes me. So yours was a great book because I marked it, and then I read my marking, so I read it twice.
And you were gracious enough to write the foreword, so thank you for that.
Yeah, it was my joy. My joy. It was a great book.
Would you do us a favor and pray for us to close this out?
Be glad to. Father, thank you for Jeff. Thank you for everybody that is watching and part of this incredible outreach effort of Jeff. I pray for him. I pray that you would protect him, keep him safe. And Father, the work you've done in his life has been a very good, solid work. But the work that you're going to do in his life is even greater. And I believe that not only for him, but I believe that for every one of the people that are with him and are viewing this time together, that their best days are still ahead of them. And the reason for that is they're still alive, and we're alive to fulfill a purpose. And if we're alive to fulfill a purpose, you're not done with us yet. And so I pray that each one of us will do our best, but then every day realize that that's the stepping stone for us to be better, do better, change lives, add value to people, to make a difference. So cover us, Father. Cover us with your grace. We need that every day. We are very human. We need your grace and your unconditional love. But give us a passion to make a difference in our world. And may we start with ourselves and our families, and then just branch out and touch a bunch of lives. We pray in your name. Amen.
Well, thanks again for watching the Gwinnett Digital Breakfast. If you want our notes, again, all you have to do is to text GC Breakfast to 313131. And as a little bonus, we're going to select 4 of you to actually get a copy of Leadership Shift by John Maxwell. Also, if you're new to this, follow us on social media, because that will allow you to stay up to date with the latest business breakfast. And we've got several planned, which we are excited about. And then on our email list as well, you'll hear more information. But as a reminder, for business leaders, we just want to let you know we're for you. I know this is challenging times, but we believe, as challenging as these days are, you and I are writing a story, and we're going to look back and see what that story is. So today, don't worry about tomorrow. Today, make these 3 leader shifts and write that story well.